Greetings and salutations, and welcome to episode 149 of Ref the District. I'm Nathan Perry here, running it solo tonight as Stoner is on leave and Trev got pulled away into work. So I'm going to need our live listeners to help me out here tonight, make sure that this show goes well, as we have lots to talk about. In the warm-up, we'll be talking about the Pro Bowl or no. Which Washington players are worthy of making it to the Pro Bowl? We'll see which ones I think are going. We'll see which ones our live listeners are as well. And then we welcome Miami as the Miami Dolphins take on our Washington Commanders. Is it going to be a barn burner? Is it going to be a close game? We'll have all that for you in the game. And the cool down is, of course, our bold predictions, plus our game predictions as well. Right now, Miami is favored by 9.5 points, according to Bet Online. The over-under set at 49.5, and I'm not a smart bettor, so maybe I shouldn't smash the over on that one, but I am smart enough to know if you head to Bet Online, you can use the code BELIEVE, BLEAV, to get yourself a 50% welcome bonus, and then you yourself can make those decisions. Bet Online, where the game starts. Not only am I running it solo, by the way, I apologize if you hear some rattling around here. I am absolutely battling a sinus infection, so there might be occasional pauses as we go through the show here. But TJ in the house, OPG Bubbles as well, Rockman here, and Dominique as well. Teddy Strong here. Gonna need you guys to help carry me along, plus anybody else who jumps in here as we get the conversation rolling here for Pro Bowl or no. Let me start with my answers, and as people respond with theirs, we'll hop in and let them do that. So I created a little slideshow here to kind of help us go through the motions of this one. And the first one is Sam Howell. He is first in passing yards. He's top 10 in passing touchdowns, and he's got 3 rushing touchdowns on top of that. So the question remains whether or not he deserves a Pro Bowl spot or not. See, the thing with him is, while he has those volume stats, I don't think he has a premier game. You can maybe look back at the first Eagles game where people are like, whoa, this guy can sling it. But he didn't win that game, right? He doesn't have it's kind of like that Heisman moment. And I don't think he has a Pro Bowl moment right now where people are like, yeah, that guy right there deserves a Pro Bowl spot. Now, he has some of the higher stats. One of the other things I question about whether or not Sam Howell should belong in the Pro Bowl isn't really a should he belong, but rather, will he make it? He is nowhere near as popular as some of the other QBs that are in the NFL or even the NFC. So he's probably going to end up sneaking in kind of like Tyler Huntley, where he's an alternate and maybe an alternate, and people just are injured or don't want to participate in the Pro Bowl, and he'll end up that way. So, TJ saying, yes, Sam could be a Pro Bowler. Gus going the opposite way, that no, Sam ain't a Pro Bowler. And Rockman taking probably my actual sentiment here. It's hard for any 4-win team to have a lot of Pro Bowl talent. You know, when you have a Pro Bowl talent, to me, that signifies that you should be winning games, that player is taking over games. And that's where a lot of this is going to come into play here is, I don't think Washington has anybody who can really take over a game. Teddy going with Sam as an alternate, not as a starter. Nathan going with Crowder, Jameson Crowder. I'll talk about that one here after we get through my list, which is a very, very, very short list here. But I do agree with you, Teddy, that I don't think Sam is a starter. I think he's going to be an alternate. I don't even think he's going to be like the number 1 backup. He's probably going to be like the 3rd QB, or he might sneak in there via, other people not being able to go. Things like Kirk Cousins being injured is going to kind of help there, where, he's going to kind of vault up the rankings. That does change if, he has himself a good game or here or two in the next couple weeks as the Pro Bowl voting is up ahead. I will say that the Pro Bowls themselves have largely lost their luster. They're not really entertaining anymore. They're more for just kind of show, and it is what it is. It's kind of a giant party. But when it comes to Hall of Fame voting, which is also going on right now, Pro Bowls end up mattering as how many Pro Bowls did the player get. And so volume stats and Pro Bowls are going to be what people end up looking back on. They're not going to see efficiency stats. They're not going to see these other kind of things that we kind of look under the microscope as the season goes along. So it is important for these players. So if you do value a player, make sure you head out there and do that social media voting that's going on right now for our Washington Commanders. Let's move to my next one to discuss here, and that's Brian Robinson. Now, this one's interesting because I really thought that he was probably one of the better running backs in the NFL this year because I've seen his name near the top of some of the lists as things are concerned. In the NFC, he is 8th in rushing. He's 5th in rushing touchdowns. And across the NFL, he's actually 4th in most receiving yards, which is actually probably where I've seen him at the top of the list there. So Brian Robinson might sneak in. I think that he's got a couple of moments where he's kind of wowed some people. There's also just not a lot of strong runners. Of course, you're going to have Christian McCaffrey. But then who else can you think of in the NFC that really deserves a Pro Bowl spot as a runner? Maybe you're going to look to Philadelphia. Both of Philadelphia and San Francisco might not have players go to the Pro Bowl because they might be in the Super Bowl. So, Swift and, Run CMC might not be in competition. Of course, those two would be above Brian Robinson. But then I think that it's right there where Brian Robinson kind of comes in as maybe like a 5th, 4th, or 3rd option. So maybe again, sneaking in. Again, it's really hard when you're talking about having a 4-win team as they are right now, kind of have anybody go into the house. We do have Stoner checking in from abroad here. We do appreciate Stoner hopping in the chat here, and he's going to answer this Jonathan Allen question here coming from OPG Bubbles, and whether or not Jonathan Allen deserves a spot as a Pro Bowler. Stoner saying Jonathan Allen makes the Pro Bowl lock. I'm not so sure, Stoner. I don't think he's really had that impactful of year, which is kind of interesting because if you look at his base stats, he's kind of on pace for what he did last year. But the defense has been given up 30 points per game. I don't know that anybody on the defense is worth throwing at the Pro Bowl. I mean, Cam Curl leads the team in tackles, but as a safety, he doesn't have, the impact plays, the interceptions or the sacks or the fumble recoveries or the forced fumbles to kind of warrant that position. Jonathan Allen, while in the NFL top 100, I think you're going to really see him, Terry McLaurin, and Daron Payne tumble. In fact, if I had to take my guess, only Jonathan Allen remains in the NFL top 100 next year. I think Terry McLaurin and Daron Payne fall out of favor. And, leading into that NFL top 100 is going to be this Pro Bowl. And I just don't see Jonathan Allen having had the impact that he had last year or the recognition that he had across the NFL. You have the likes of the Philadelphia defensive front that is gains a lot of notoriety. You have a couple other defensive tackles within the NFC that I think might get there. And Rockman agreeing with that one as well. Dominique with Kendall Fuller from the defense. I looked long and hard at that one to see whether or not that was somebody who might come in as there's the premier talent and cornerback isn't nearly as high, but the names are still there. You still have a Stephon Gilmore, you still have a Darius Slay, so it's just kind of when you get down to Kendall Fuller, he's probably the eighth most recognizable person in the NFC. So it's kind of that Washington unbias or that Washington bias where people don't pay attention to this team, and it's hard to pay attention to a team that's been so bad this year. So it's it is going to be interesting. Stoner saying that I'm exactly right, and we're just going to leave it at that. But he does actually finish it with the same stats plus the reputation is actually what's going to get Jonathan Allen in. No one cares about defensive rankings, and that is kind of what I was talking about with some of these other players. Is the name recognition isn't there for a lot of Washington players. Sam Howell doesn't have name recognition. Brian Robinson doesn't have name recognition. Neither one have an impact game that they've had this year where people can look back to and be like, yes, maybe fantasy wise that you're looking at a couple of games for each of them where they've kind of taken over and had some big games that way. But by and large, not really on the field. Move into my last one, because this list, I told you, was super, super short when I went and looked at who potentially might go there. I'm going to go with my man, Tress Way. A little boomer sooner homerism here going on, of course. He's top 5 inside the 20, which is an important stat for punters. He's also had the fewest touchbacks of the people in the top 10. So that's impressive that he has had top 5 inside the 20, but only 2 of his punts have made it into the end zone. So that's great field position that he's setting up our defense, and then they're absolutely losing right at the start. And then he's also top 10 in fair catches. Tress Way is a weapon. We've known this for a long time. I think that he's been largely, left to the wayside. There's times where I thought he's had all pro seasons as a punter, and he's not even made the Pro Bowl. So he made it last year. He's having another solid year. Lord knows he's been given enough chances to punt this year. So I would imagine Tress Way can make his way back in as a punter when it has come down to it. TJ Payne has had a better year than Allen to me. Payne barely made it into the Pro Bowl last year, and he had 10.5 sacks. He is not on pace for 10.5 sacks. And so unless something drastically changes, I do not think Daron Payne is going to make it into the Pro Bowl. And whether or not he's had a better year than Allen, I think is debatable. I think Daron Payne has had splashier moments. Absolutely. You can look back into the Denver game, which I've realized this week too. It's a long, long time ago. But where he's taken over drives. Jonathan Allen hasn't had that, but Jonathan Allen has been consistent this entire season. And I think his dominance, and it was kind of like last year, a lot of people were saying Daron Payne was better than Jonathan Allen. And the way that I talked about it last year was Jonathan Allen was having an all-pro type year. And because of that, he was being double teamed and triple teamed, which gave Daron Payne the opportunity to go one-on-one, sometimes his own double teams, and beat them. This year, Jonathan Allen's not having quite that impact, and therefore Daron Payne is having a little less of an impact. So it's very interesting to see those two work in tandem. Dominique with the best player on the team, Tress Way. He's consistently been the best player, and I think that says a lot about the team. When your punter is your best player year in and year out, Dominique, I think that says way too much about where this team stands. Bubbles with Tress has an okay year. Yeah. I mean, I definitely called him out in the first, I think it was 5 games. He was not having a good year. He was shanking punts. He was being bad. He's really coming to form though these last 6 games. The thing with him, and I wonder really how much of that was Cheeseman impacting the play. Cheeseman snaps have been awful, and Tress Way probably deserves a Pro Bowl nod just for his ability to catch anything that comes at him, because he has saved so many high snaps when he's punting, so many low snaps when he's punting, so many low snaps when he's setting up for the field goal, so many high snaps. He just is able to get that and put it down no matter where he's at. So Cheeseman has been struggling, and Tress Way has been absolutely lifting him up. If Tress Way wasn't performing nearly as well as he was, Cheeseman absolutely would have been off of this team a long time ago, because we would have seen so many bad snaps just go awry. I remember one punt snap literally bounced off the ground. Tress Way was able to pick it up and get a decent punt off. So some of those things are have some kind of correlation impact there. We got another vote here for the Jameson Crowder, which I guess we'll get to now. Will Diggs coming in with the Jameson Crowder to tag along with Nathan in the chat. He has been special for us. I don't know that he's been special enough in the NFL sense to warrant actually making the Pro Bowl. Now, if someone can correct me if I'm wrong there, by all means, I would love to see this, where you would find the stat to tell me that he has been a premier returner. I'm going to look at the average punt return here, and let's see if I can't find Jameson Crowder. He averages 7.4 punts, or 7.4 punt return yardage. Yeah, yards per punt return here, 7.4. That's a far cry from the top, by the way, as the Darius Davis has an average of 16.3, and there's at least 20 players in between him and Jamison Crowder. So he's not really been averaging enough. As far as attempts, he's had the most attempts. He's had 28 punt return attempts. So that's, I guess, something. But I don't think he doesn't have a touchdown to his name. He's got the one exciting run that he didn't turn into a touchdown. But outside of that, I just don't see Jamison Crowder. Normally that's reserved for somebody who's super electric. And I don't see that Jamison Crowder has had that electric year to warrant that. I think we are just a little bit more excited because we're used to Mr. Steal Your Girl, Dax Milne out there, Mr. Fair Catch, Mr. I'm going to go 3 yards forward. And so anything would be a improvement over that one. Yeah. And so Gus sharing that sentiment as well. Better than Dax does not equal a Pro Bowl. And then doubling down with the this team doesn't deserve a Pro Bowler. If I would be surprised if we had a Pro Bowl starter, Gus. I won't be surprised if at least one player sneaks in as far as that's concerned. OPG Bubbles, I'm assuming the retirement question is on Tress Way. And Tress Way has only been in for, I think, 9 years at this point. So I think everyone has this idea that he's been in the league forever. And that's just not been the case. Even Stoner was just like thinking that that the other day that he must have had so many, years, but he's only been in since 2014. So I think he has a few more years before he would, hang up the cleats, and then it'll be interesting to see where he goes, because he's a great personality. And I think that he would do well in front of a mic. I mean, he does the hang time pod, so it'll be interesting to see where he ends up doing there. But Dominic, I'm really surprised you say this here. The best chance of a Pro Bowler would come from defense. The defense has been far outpaced by the offense this year. The defense is bottom 2, bottom 3 at best, and the offense is mid-tier. It's not great, but it's better than it was last year, which isn't saying much. So I'm interested, Dominique, if you can expand on why you think the best chance for a Pro Bowler from this team comes from the defense, which we know is awful. It was so bad that they fired their defensive coordinator, and we're going to see Ron Rivera, calling some shots, which, by the way, he says that the conversation on the microphone just means a little bit more between defensive snaps than normal. So we'll have to see what that's going to look like there. Gus trying to change the subject because we know Pro Bowlers come few and far between on this team here. Better conversation topic: which Pro Bowler on another team could be a commander next year? Saquon Barkley, Daniel Hunter, anyone? How about Jalen Johnson? Well, I think for that one, Gus, we'll table this one until we see the Pro Bowl roster and we see what free agency looks like, because this team has a lot of holes and I'm very interested to see where they're going to end in the draft and what they're going to do with the GM position and head coach position, because there's a lot of changes from now until the end of the season before we have that answer. And one of those things is this game against Miami. Can Washington pull the upset? And how's that going to look? That's all going to be coming in here in the game. Stick around. Welcome to the game here on Ref the District. I do appreciate everybody in the chat and everyone watching now. It is just me today battling through a sinus infection. Stoner is traveling and Trev got pulled into work, and we are never going to stop anybody from making their money and push them here. So best wishes to both of those gentlemen here as I hold things down and we welcome Miami to FedEx. And probably the most exciting thing about this game for most people is that it is the annual toy collection for Toys for Tots. So don't stay at home if you've got tickets. Go to the game, get yourself a new unwrapped toy, and drop it in the box there for those Toys for Tots, because you know that's a great cause there. And then I guess the second thing that people should probably be somewhat excited about, seeing as they were super excited, my coworker or my co-hosts here were super excited about it, is Washington gets to be on Hard Knocks finally. That's right. Miami Dolphins are a part of the in-season Hard Knocks, and so we get to be kind of a side figure into that. And it will be interesting to see how that is how that affects it. Gus is going to be at the game. Company's taking him there. No one from Ref the District's going to be there. I'm still here in Oklahoma. Trev is working on the weekends and Stoner is out with family. So we won't be there. If we were, Gus, it would be an excellent to come. If we ever set up another Ref the District day, we'll make sure people know and we can hook up while we're at the stadium. Do enjoy the game though, Gus. I think it's going to be an explosive game. It's going to be an exciting game. And it's going to be a true test, I think, for Washington's offense. Miami's offense is very explosive. Washington's defense has been giving up the most explosive plays all year long. So pretty much the only thing that's going to stop the Miami Dolphins is FedEx Field itself. If they trip up over the turf, or if they, can't, get their footing, then Washington might be able to slow down the Miami Dolphins. But Ron Rivera taking over the defensive coordinator position isn't going to make a dent on whether or not the Miami Dolphins are going to score. Now, the question is can Washington score against the Miami Dolphins? Now, the Miami Dolphins aren't some unbeatable team. They only have 3 losses on the year. Those were to the Eagles, the Bills, and the Chiefs, all very good teams. But they've given up points along the way. So Washington has to be able to stay with them to be able to make this game something, closer than the 9.5 spread that it is right now, because I don't think Miami scores less than 30 points. So can Washington score more than 30 points this game? And that's been a big frustration for me over the last few weeks with Sam Howell, with Eric Bieniemy, is the inability to put up points. We saw that they have the capability to put up points earlier in the season, but they really haven't been able to over the last few games. In fact, since the last Eagles game, they put up 20 points, 26 points, 19 points, and 10 points. And that's not going to win you a lot of football games. You can argue that putting up 26 points should be enough to win you an NFL football game. But this defense hasn't been able to stop anybody. And so 26 is a gamble. You're going to need to be able to put up another 30 points, which we haven't seen since that Eagles game. And so, is Washington capable of doing that? Is going to be the biggest question. Dominique coming up with another way to beat Miami, shutting off the water in the Dolphins locker room. You don't need even hot water at FedEx, as they found out the last time we played at home was the hot water got shut off. And so the team was stinky, just like they were on the field against the Giants. The when you're looking at these two teams, you have the Miami Dolphins, who are fast, who are exciting. In fact, I look at that offense that the Miami Dolphins have, and I see what I think Washington was trying to go for, and why Eric Bieniemy was brought in is, we hear a lot, we heard a lot about Washington's wide receivers and that they're all 4-3 guys and that there's a lot of speed. And then you got Antonio Gibson who's also a speed guy. And we were thinking we were going to see a lot of this in space and all these things. And that hasn't been the case for Washington's offense. In fact, they haven't been getting the separation that they need. Terry McLaurin, I think, is one of the worst top wide receivers right now at getting separation. So I have to put the top on there because obviously he's not going to be the worst wide receiver at it. But when you're looking at the top probably 50 wide receivers in the NFL, Terry McLaurin just hasn't been getting separation, which is a huge disappointment because I think we all expected Terry McLaurin to have a big year. I know I did. I expected him to have a 1,400-yard season, unless he hits a couple 200-yard games here between now and the end of the season. That's just not going to be the case. And Jahan Dotson's been in a sophomore slump. So you look at what we are expecting, and what we were expecting was this Miami Dolphins offense where it was explosive and it was scoring from all over the field. And you had these big plays and these breakaway plays, and that hasn't been the case so far. And you got to wonder how much of that is Sam Howell, how much of that is Eric Bieniemy. There's again reports coming around that the players wouldn't support him as a head coach if they were, asked by ownership when the change is going to happen. And so it's kind of an interesting thing there. And Gus bringing up here, Terry was a third rounder, and this is one of those reasons is that he, I think that he's been a strong route runner. Even though he's got the 4.3 speed, that's straight line speed, I don't think he has a lot of quickness to get open, and his route running I'm not going to say it's diminished, but cornerbacks have caught up with it. And the reason why he was also a third rounder was he's a body catcher. And we've seen how that's been a problem on occasion with Terry McLaurin this season, and he's not been able to pull in some of those balls. But I mean, he's pulled in some fantastic shots. And of course, if you look back at his highlight reel, not just this season, but over the course of his career, a lot of his highlights are catching these 50-50 balls because, he's either not gotten the separation or there's been, somebody who's not had the arm strength tossing up these passes to Terry McLaurin. So for Washington, continuing along with the Miami thing, for Washington to be able to keep up with Miami, their offense is going to need to be clicking. We're going to need to see something we haven't seen from this offense since the second Philadelphia game. And they weren't supposed to be able to move the ball against Philadelphia, and they were supposed to move it against some of the teams that they faced afterwards. So hopefully they'll be able to get into form. Sam Howell has been somewhat efficient. I have been falling off the Sam Howell train as of late, largely because while wins are not a quarterback stat, and I'm not trying to point to the wins and losses here for Sam Howell. It's whether or not Sam Howell's playing well enough to keep us competitive in games, because that's what a lot of people are looking to this game and the rest of the season is they are okay with losing. Some fans, the tanking fans, are okay with losing as long as we're competitive and Sam Howell stays healthy and develops. But the problem I'm having right now is I haven't seen Sam Howell develop after this 3-game stretch where we all fell in love with Sam Howell. And when I say all of us, I mean, even the national media started doting on Sam Howell. Well, since that Philadelphia game, things have really started to peter off. And we're not seeing the same mistakes we saw earlier, but now we're starting to see a QB who's, maybe more along the Gardner Minshew level rather than prime Russell Wilson. And so those are the things that I'm kind of worried about as the season continues to progress is if this offense doesn't continue going, if Sam Howell can't look good while we're competitive, I don't need garbage time stats here. Okay. Kirk Cousins was the king of that for a long time here in Washington. Game would be well out of hand, and all of a sudden he'd throw up 300 yards. I don't want that for Sam Howell. And I don't think we as fans want that either, because then it puts us in a predicament. Washington right now drafting number 5 overall. And if Sam Howell can keep us competitive over these last few games, then it really puts into question, what do you take at 5? If there's a QB there, do you take him? If Sam Howell continues to put up 10 points like he did against Dallas, or if he is putting up 17 points or 20 points against the Patriots or 19 points against the Giants, those weren't good teams. You got to be able to put up more points than that if you're going to do that. Yep, Gus, you're on the Gardner Minshew comparison there. I've seen a couple of other people come along to that, and I've long since said that his floor is probably Gardner Minshew, but I was seeing a lot more young Russell Wilson. But as the seasons progressed, I'm starting to see that he's not hitting enough of those ceiling throws for me to continue praising him the way. Now we need to look critically, especially as Washington finds themselves in a position that they could get what is a franchise QB. I still believe in Sam Howell, and there's a lot of games left for him to show us that he is the guy, but it is kind of, man, it's hard to admit you're wrong, right? I was convincing Stoner to be a howler at the beginning of the season, and now Stoner's having to convince me to stay on the Sam Howell train, as I'm just kind of realizing maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was not right. And Locked On Law, Sam Howell is leading the league in pass attempts by quite a lot. By quite a lot. And actually, you're saying this sarcastically, brilliant strategy by Bieniemy. But I think that it is a brilliant strategy. This franchise needs to know whether or not Sam Howell is the QB. And for Sam Howell to prove that, he needs reps. And so the more reps he gets, the more pass attempts he gets, Washington is better off, because we are absolutely seeing, and there are going to be bad plays with this because he's a first-year starter, and he does have quite a few interceptions to his name. And I'm okay with that, with the high volume and the learning. If you look at any of the premier QBs and their first amount of starts, Sam Howell is doing comparative stuff to them. In fact, if you look at a Trevor Lawrence, as Gus Bus is mentioning here, that if you look at his stats, those Joey Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, even Jalen Hurts, they did not win a lot of their first 17 games. Okay. And a lot of them had poor stats to go with it. If you remember Trevor Lawrence, a lot of the discourse was he going to be a bust? Because he didn't look as ready as people thought he was going to be coming out of college. Now, probably nobody thinks that, and everybody thinks of him as a franchise quarterback. He did enough that first year to kind of show. Plus, I'll say this, the draft status absolutely has something to do with it. It really does. A 5th round rookie drafted 2 years ago, or 5th round guy drafted 2 years ago by a totally different regime is going to have a whole heck of a short, leash compared to a 1st rounder from just the year before. Sam Howell is a good QB, and I think that Sam Howell is an NFL QB. Where he stands right now, I think, is a lot more in question. I would be A-okay right now if the season ended and Washington was drafting to go ahead and try to build around Sam Howell next year. But we got some time, and we'll see. And we also don't right now picking 5, but it is going to be a difference. Yes, Gardner Minshew doesn't quite have the arm that Sam Howell does. Fair enough. Sam Howell's made some big boy throws. Big boy throws. And that's why I'm still willing to stick around. But I do need to see this offense be better against Miami. You cannot beat Miami unless you win a foot race. They're an 80% favorite. They're a 9.5-point favorite. Miami is probably going to walk away with this one. But Washington needs to do its best to stay with them, because every punt, and maybe I'll do the math on Sunday when we do this, but every punt that Washington makes on Sunday is essentially, to me, plus 4 points for the Dolphins. Okay, and that's essentially splitting the difference between a field goal and a touchdown for the Dolphins is what I'm looking at, because the Dolphins are going to score. And they're going to score a lot of points. So can Washington keep up is going to be the question. Because we know the defense isn't going to be up to the task to stop. They've proven that all year. In fact, I'll throw a dollar on this one right now. I know that we're not into the week 3 predictions just yet. But if the Dolphins are scoring more than 30 points. In fact, 30.5 is going to be my point total for them. If they score less than 30 points or 30 or less points, I'd be shocked. Absolutely shocked. I don't even know what would have to happen for that to be the case. Tyreek Hill, Tua, and Mozart sit out the second half. I mean, we saw Tommy DeVito throw 3 touchdowns against this defense. You don't think Tua can beat the bricks off of them? You don't think Tyreek Hill's going to be running past Benjamin St-Juste? Who, by the way, when I was looking at the Pro Bowl stats, I noticed that he is actually tops in the league at pass defense. So, I mean, hey, that's something, I guess. If it rains, Gus mentioning it is supposed to rain. So there's that. Actually, right now it's saying game time weather is 46 and partly cloudy, Gus. But if it rains, does that slow down Miami? I said at the beginning, I said jokingly, the thing that's going to slow them down is FedEx Field itself. Yeah, rain is a great equalizer. The problem with rain is also it makes your defense slippery. So it's like if Tyreek Hill keeps his footing, but Kendall Fuller loses his, that's an extra 20 yards there. So you're going to have to see, that is going to be something interesting. Dominique, I think the rushing will win this game. If that's the case, Dominique, then we're on the wrong side of that. As Eric Bieniemy is not going to change his mindset here. We were absolutely throwing the ball no less than 60% of the time. And that's even while the game is close. The Dolphins, on the other hand, I think will run the ball a little bit more. Of course, they have got Mozart there, 151 carries for 785 yards. One of the best rushers in the league for the Dolphins. I'm trying to think. I have not seen their injury report, so let me pull this up real quick. So yeah, okay. So Achane there is listed as questionable, limited participant on Wednesday. So I mean, they have two good running backs as far as I'm concerned, and that's another 39 carries and 461 yards with the rookie there. So it's going to be if rushing's winning the game, I don't know that Washington's on the right side of that. Don't know that Washington's on the right side of that at all. Nathan, you can see how much they play for McDaniel, how much a good head coach makes. Yes. McDaniel was a media darling last year, and then the Dolphins kind of petered out without a quarterback. This year, they're hard knocks, in-season hard knocks, and you can see how much the players, as offensive players especially, appreciate a coach like McDaniel and how much they believe in him and they play for him. We're going to see whether or not our players still believe in Ron Rivera and how much they're going to play for him. It's looking at the conversation here on there. A lot of draft conversation there as far as drafting a tight end, left tackle, wide receiver. A lot of that discourse is happening. I saw somebody had posted what was the meme for Cincinnati a long time ago, or a few years ago when they drafted Jamar Chase. That's all fun and games, and we'll probably talk more about that as the draft gets near. Dominique putting some of the bad QB play or the lack of points that I was putting on to Sam Howell on the receivers because they're dropping balls. Yeah, the receivers have not been good, Dominique. They have not. They've been a flat out disappointment, except for Curtis Samuel. Curtis Samuel's been an absolute difference maker for Washington. And I think Curtis Samuel has really finally come into his own here in Washington. We didn't get to see it year one. And it was very frustrating with him not being, inactive or put on IR. And he has this lingering injury. And then year two, Scott Turner's offense kind of still had, much to be desired when it came to the passing game. Part of that was the quarterbacks that Washington was trotting out there. But Eric Bieniemy has unlocked the Curtis Samuel that we saw in Carolina. The reason why he was paid, $30 million to come here to Washington. And he's an interesting one, I think, when we get to free agency, because his contract's up. Is he a piece for the next offense, or do you let him walk? I think you probably end up letting him walk, because I think he's going to sign a reasonable deal with another team, and that can potentially help you more in the long run. But Curtis Samuel this year, I'm not afraid to say this, has been our best wide receiver. Period. Absolutely been the best wide receiver. Still some of the draft talk in the chat there. Miami, Nathan's going to say keep him. Dominique, I'm sorry, but we cannot be patient with Samuel, but be the QB race after 1 year. Let's see here. Go back to the game here. Miami is allowing. I've had the stats up, and this is what happens when I don't have team members. Normally, what you see is I'll pitch a question to one of my co-hosts, and then they're talking, and I'm bringing up more information. Not able to do that today, as both of them are out, and I do appreciate people tuning in still here on Ref the District's live show and helping me out, because those comments that are on topic are definitely keeping things moving and interesting here. Miami has been scoring 30 points a game. They've been giving up 22 points a game. They have allowed 2,300 yards passing. So the passing hasn't necessarily been that great against them, and they've allowed 271 rushing attempts for 1,000 yards, or 3.8 yards a carry. So the defense is just okay, which is why I think Washington, if their offense is clicking, can at least keep with Miami. Not saying they're going to win, but they can at least keep with Miami. Omar, who is calling defense this week? Ron Rivera is calling the defense. Now, interesting enough, he does have some assistance on the sideline as the new defensive assistant, Jim Salgado, has been signed on in an interim spot here. He coached defensive backs under Sean McDermott. Sean McDermott used to be a Ron Rivera assistant. So he knows these defenses. And that is going to be, I think, interesting to see, only because I think what Ron Rivera is going to do is we're going to start seeing a lot more zone. That's what he liked running there in Carolina. That's what he ran in San Diego. That's what he ran in Chicago, is more of the zone. And so I think we're going to see some changes there. I don't think that it stops the big plays necessarily, but I do think that you're going to see a slightly better defense. And when I say slightly better, Washington has been given up. Let's see here. Washington's been given up 29 points per game. They'll probably be giving, from here on out, I'm going to call it right now, they're going to give up 27 points per game. I don't think it's going to be a marked improvement. You still have the same players out there. The biggest problem with Washington's defense from here forward is the lack of pass rushing talent. Washington no longer has Montez Sweat or Chase Young, who, whichever way you wanted to feel about them, could pressure the quarterback. We don't have that anymore. Casey Tuhill is not that guy. James Smith-Williams, KJ Henry, Andre Jones, not those guys. So that's going to be the biggest detriment there. But I do think that they'll be slightly better. And I do agree here that this secondary, they're better zone players. And it's going to be a nice change to see them putting into positions where they're going to be a little bit more successful. Gus with, if Rivera coaches up the D, then everyone is going to say, so you're telling me there's a chance. You never know. You never know, Gus. Chip in a chair. I still don't think Washington has a winnable game from here on out. It's going to be tough sledding. I'm not team tank. I'll never be team tank. They should be playing to win the games. The difference between having, look at it this way for those who are wanting Washington to lose. If you believe in Sam Howell and this team wins 3 more games the rest of this year, I know that's a little hard to believe right now, but if they win 3 games and it takes them outside the top 10, are you not happy with that? You can get a player at that point. You can still get somebody who's going to impact the field at that point. Maybe it took you out of the Marvin Harrison Jr. Sweepstakes or the left tackle from Penn State, which everybody seems to love right now. But you can still get somebody that's going to have an impact. Anton Harrison, by the way, having a great, fantastic rookie year. And I just want to say both Boomer Sooner, and that was a pick that I would have made rather than Emmanuel Forbes. I wanted to tackle, but what do I know? I'm just some Yahoo here who has a microphone in front of Yam joining here. Yam, I'm all by my lonesome as the boys ditched me tonight. We have a Dallas fan talking trash. Appreciate you coming in here, zombies. And the code talker, tanking increases draft capital. Yeah, this team's so bad though, code talker, you don't need to tank. So why not play to win the games? That's my thinking. As I was just like, I just don't see there. Gus Bus not tanking worked out for Houston. they would have taken Bryce if they had the number one pick. I don't know if that's the case. From all I've heard, CJ Stroud was supposed to be the number one overall pick, and then Tepper stepped in and was just like, I want Bryce Young. That's what I've heard. Whether or not it's true, who knows? All I know is I look at the Carolina stuff and I'm very thankful that's not us anymore. That's not us anymore. We've got a whole different situation. We don't have to deal with that kind of stuff there. Omar, Forbes you think Forbes gonna stop Tyreek? No, for two reasons. One, please never put Forbes in his current state as a rookie against Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill, one double move is going to beat Forbes every day of the week. Two, Manuel Forbes is actually dealing with an elbow injury, and we're unlikely to see him in this game against Miami. Gus, I agree. It was 16's too high to take Harrison, but it was too high to take Jahmyr Gibbs. It was too high to take various other players. When you get the right guy, it doesn't matter where you take them, Gus. It does not matter where you take them. So as long as you get the right guy, that's all that matters. The only time you say it's too high to take somebody is when that player doesn't work out. And we're seeing that with Emmanuel Forbes. 16 was too high for Emmanuel Forbes. If Emmanuel Forbes had 3 interceptions and was playing well, nobody looks at him being too high at 16. He was picked too high because he's failing to live up to expectations. So if you get the right guy, and I thought Anton Harrison was the right guy, 16 would have been just fine for him because we would have had a right tackle and no one would have been complaining about Andrew Wiley. Mike Lee, no one is stopping Hill. Yeah, Tyreek Hill is a different beast, and I think Tyreek Hill is going to have his day against this defense. You're going to see a lot of him in motion. McDaniel's a very, very smart offensive coordinator. Or rather, I should say offensive mind, as he's the head coach. He is going to put Tyreek Hill in a mismatch where he's going to drag across the center, and you're going to have either Cody Barton or Jamin Davis, or God help us all, David Mayo, Miracle Whip himself, running across trying to keep up with Tyreek Hill. And that is not going to be good. With the switch to Ron Rivera in the zone play that we're expecting, I also think that we are going to see some zone mishaps. Again, McDaniel, great offensive mind. He has zone busters, and these are smart players on the Miami Dolphins side. They're going to know where to sit, and then if they have space in that zone, they're going to start picking up some chunk yards with their speed. Locked on Law knocked Tyreek on his rear. It's the difference between giving up penalty yards and giving up big plays. Or what's the difference between giving up? Benjamin St. Juste was drafted because he was a big guy. That might be something. If he can do some press corner work and stay physical with Tyreek and win that battle at the line, maybe that helps. You're going to have to give some safety help over top there. And that's going to be difficult because we are missing Derek Force. Percy Butler, I thought, has been playing just okay. I was actually very high on him a few games ago, and then as more games have gone along, I'm kind of waning off Percy Butler a little bit. We need Derek Force of last season back. Derek Force of last season was really good. Derek Force of this season was just before getting injured. But if we can have Derek Force of last season, I think that goes a long way. Gus do you think Derek Force can end backfill Cam Curl spot next year if Curl goes elsewhere? Yeah, I mean, you probably run it through if you don't re-sign Cam Curl, you're probably running it with Derek Force, Percy Butler, and Quan Martin. I don't think that's an imposing safety group. You can definitely get some improvement there. I liked Brisker a few drafts ago. We didn't go that way. We went Fedarian Mathis. We've all seen how that's turned out. First String Podcast in the house. What's good, Toothpick? My boys left me all by myself today. Make sure everyone heads out to First String Podcast. They're a good group of people there. Dominique, you still have to count for Jalen Waddle. Yeah. I mean, the Miami offense is loaded. There again, Miami's offense is exactly what we thought we were going to be. We thought we had wide receiver threats 1, 2, and 3. We thought that we had a good running 1-2 punch with the ground game. Brian Robinson, a power runner. Gibson in space. We were supposed to be explosive. Eric Bieniemy was going to take this offense that was yucky with Scott Turner and would just completely, go the distance, especially because we thought Sam Howell was going to be able to sling it. Not been the case so far. Definitely not been the case over the last 5 games there. The locked on Trev does like us. He's a busy guy with his job hours. He's got to work those hours. And again, I mentioned this before, I'm not going to step in the way until Ref the District starts paying salary. He's got to make ends meet. So Trev has just been working. That's where he was. He got called into a shift, earlier today. Normally I would call in help from some of our other content creators, but here I am doing it alone. And actually, I'm not doing it alone. I have the help of every one of you here in the chat, so I do appreciate it. Let's go ahead and move to our game predictions. When we get to the cool down, I want to see what you think this game is going to end. The score is going to be here in the cool down. Man, I've been talking here for 56 minutes, now 57. Do appreciate all the assistance from the people in the chat today. If you're listening to this on your favorite audio platform afterwards, make sure you do check us out as we stream live every Wednesday at 7:30 Eastern. And it's a great time to have conversation. Normally, I have my guys to bounce off some of ideas, but I have a great group of people here in the comment section feeding me some great talking points as we get along here. TJ with our first game prediction. 35-17, the Dolphins. Dominique right there with him, 32-18. Yam. Apologies. 38-20, Dolphins. The Hawk TV, 70-7, Dolphins. I really, really hope the Dolphins don't put up another 70 burger. I don't know that I can take it. I don't know that I can take it, Hawk. Tom, 42-24, Miami. I think that's respectable. It's not a good loss, but it's respectable. 24 points. As long as they're not garbage time points. As long as they're not garbage time points, I would be okay with the 42-24 score. First string, toothpick here, 40-10, the Fins. Teddy, 31-13. Miami winning that one. Mike, 55-3. Oof. Mike, if it's that kind of game, we are not going to have a good Sunday. We are not going to have a good Sunday. Omar with a missed sly extra point, making it 31-16 for the Dolphins. The PCC asking about the cough that I just let up there. I do not have RSV. I do just have a sinus infection. Haven't been able to knock it for the last week, and on some medication, hoping to get there by Sunday, as we will be streaming this game live. It will be just me, unless EP can grace us with her presence, although EP is down for the count as well. So we will see how that goes. I mentioned before, the Dolphins have been scoring 30 points a game. I don't think that they'll score less than 30 points this game. They've been giving up 20 points a game. I think that 42-24 score is that's right there. I wouldn't be surprised if this game finishes 45-27 is what I'm going to go with and the Dolphins taking home the W there at FedEx Field. What I am hoping out of this is that Washington just keeps pace up until the third quarter. Show us what you got, Sam Howell. Show us what you got, Eric Bieniemy. Put some points up on the board. And then if the wheels fall off, let the wheels fall off there late in the third or in the fourth quarter. Okay. Don't let the wheels fall off in the first or second quarter and have this be a 30-7 game at halftime. Okay. That's not going to show me anything that I want to see when it comes to what people talk about, which is playing close and seeing the development of Sam Howell. A 30-7 game at halftime ain't going to do it. It's just not. You need to play this game close. I want Washington to win. I would love nothing more than Washington to pull out like a 38-31 victory. That'd be fantastic. I know a lot of people would be upset with it as Washington would tumble down the draft boards, but I don't care about that. I'll care about that in April. I'll care about it a little bit before then, but you get my point. Winning is so much more fun than losing. So just keep it close. Keep it close. Tom, despite me thinking we lose, I think we will see some good play out of Quan, KJ Henry, and Bates. I will say this about John Bates. I know Stoner's not here to trash our offensive tackle plus tight end. But John Bates has been, I've always said that he's been a underused wide receiver, or receiving tight end. I don't think he's flashy. He's not going to be Kelsey. He's not going to be Kittle. He's not going to be Cooley or anybody like that. But I do think that he's a very savvy receiver. I think he knows where to find his spots, and he's shown a little bit more burst this season under Eric Bieniemy. And there's a reason why we haven't seen Cole Turner. Cole Turner can't block worth a darn, but it's also because John Bates is being used more and more as a receiver with Eric Bieniemy. So I'm going to put up our first dollar here. And I'm going to say John Bates catches 3 passes against the Miami Dolphins. We're going to throw that one out there, see what people think on that one. KJ Henry and Quan Martin. I will say Quan Martin has been more exciting to see. I'm glad he is finding his place in this defense. I think that he had a very bad offseason, very bad preseason, and he had kind of struggled to get into it early on this season. I think a large part of that was Jack Del Rio in the defense, Ron Rivera included in that. We're asking him to just do too much. I get that they value the position flex and the versatility that a player like Quan Martin has, because Quan Martin played cornerback, he played safety, he played nickel, and they want him to do all those things. Let him focus on an aspect in his rookie year, and as he masters that, start to use him elsewhere. One of the areas Quan Martin has been excelling at is the blitz packages. He, by far, out of all of the blitzing cornerbacks that we've used, has had the best timing on those. He's not always hitting home, but he's had the best timing on those. So I like what I see from Quan Martin in that regard. KJ Henry is coming along. I think KJ Henry is going to be what I wanted Shaka Toney to be, which is a good rotational edge rusher. I bet you all forgot about Shaka Toney. Yeah, he probably went on Bet Online and made some wrong bets there. But Shaka Toney was a beast in college, and I really thought he was going to – I get that he was undersized. KJ Henry, not undersized, but KJ Henry's not nearly the developed pass rusher, but I do think that he's going to be a great rotational piece for Washington. Let's see how many times Tua has been taken down, because I want to put a sack total here for Washington as Washington 9 sacks against Tommy DeVito, but 0 against Dak Prescott. He's only been sacked 17 times. Oof. I'll put the over under on the sacks that Washington gets at 2. So we'll do 2.5. Sorry, 2.5 sacks for Washington is the most I'm going to give them. So they, and again, I mentioned this before. You just don't have a premier edge rusher on this team anymore. Cleek Hudson is Dominique's guy. I really, really, really wanted to like Hudson even more, but he's I think that his size and just where Washington plays him is just not enough. I think that we'll do there. I agree with this. Shock is probably he'll find if he finds a team, it'd be practice squad at best, and he'll have to really work hard to stay in the NFL. On my 2.5, John's taking the over. Locked on Laws taking the under. And TJ reminding us that TJ did tell us not to let that sack performance go to the head. And I told you, TJ, I was going to let it go to my head that day, but only that day. I didn't get carried away thinking that they were going to get too far there. Dominique, do I think Ron will stick with the 4-2-5 defense? I do wonder how much of this defense has been his choice. He definitely, in the press conferences, has pushed this of like, oh, I let Jack do his own thing, and I knew I didn't agree with his philosophies, but I just felt like I should let him do his thing, which is, by the way, it's a great leadership thing to do. You let people run with their ideas. It is not great leadership of when it's not working, to let them continue falling on their face. So will he stick with the 4-2-5 or use the Cinco package? You got to remember, this defense likes to use the Cinco package as well. As I continue to cough here after an hour and 7 minutes of talking, I think we'll see more of the Cinco package than we're going to see of the 4-2-5, but I wouldn't be too excited to see so much of the 3 linebackers, just because, again, your third linebacker is David Mayo. It is not Hudson. So it's going to be, if you see 3 linebackers, you're likely going to see Cody Barton, Jamin Davis, and David Mayo out there. And if that's the case, that's not great. Not that Hudson's going to be that much of an improvement, but it is going to be, and this is exactly what I was talking about, Locked on Law, that he has to run that because he doesn't have enough linebackers to run a 4-3 or a 3-4. All right, let's see some more dollas there in the chat. I'm going to throw one on Terry McLaurin. I think he gets his first 100-yard receiving game of the season. We've seen this before from this offense. When there has been something pressured against them, Terry's not receiving the ball enough. We've seen Terry get a lot of targets. Oh, Jahan Dotson didn't see any targets. Jahan Dotson starts seeing targets. The big talk here in the last week, since Thanksgiving really, is that Terry McLaurin is not an elite wide receiver. Terry McLaurin doesn't have a 100-yard receiving game this season. Expect Terry to have a big game. Rockman going against me on that one. So I just do think that we've seen it before from this offense, where they've kind of heard the negativity and they go there with that. They pressure that against there. Hawk TV, $1 over under of the pass interference flags thrown against the Washington defensive backs. Hawk, I'm not sure. Let's go with 2. Clifton wash my office. Okay, I will do that. I will make sure the office is clean. This is my office, by the way. I work right here at the house, but I will spray and disinfect it. That's a good idea. There is definitely a lot of bugs going around that. Yeah, Hawk, we're going to go with 2 pass interference flags. Let me change that. 2, because defensive holding is technically not pass interference. And I think you're probably going to see that or like illegal contact more than you're going to see pass interference. So we'll probably just we'll go 3 overall penalties against the defensive backs. Dollar to TJ. Why we got to go negative on this one? Crowd starts booing before halftime. How much of a crowd are you expecting, TJ? Because I'm expecting near bare bones. One, I don't think the Miami crowd's going to travel very well. Because why are you leaving Miami in the winter to come up north to Washington? I don't see that that's going to be the case. Washington fans are back to their apathetic state. Exactly where Josh Harris doesn't want them to be. Josh Harris wants them to be angry, or Josh Harris wants them to be excited. And when we're at this state where we're at 4 wins at the end of November, this game will be the first game of December, and fans are just like, can we just get to the offseason, fire Ron Rivera, whatnot? This is not where he wants to be. So I do not expect, I'm not going to do the booing, but I expect FedEx to be less than 65% capacity. I'll say that. John, Terry's not going to get 100, but one of the others will get over 100. I'll take it. I'll take that. Dominique, Dollar, Dotson, 2 touchdowns, Thomas 1, Robinson 1. Ooh, man, we got a parlay going here. Dotson 2 touchdowns is spicy by itself. Thomas 1, Robinson 1. I think those are good bets. I think that those are Washington's main producers right now. Jahan Dotson, I don't think is going to get 2 touchdowns though. So I'm going to go against this one, Dominique, on this this particular dollar there. But I mean, hey, if we can get 4 touchdowns, I'm pretty happy with that. Gregory coming in late here. Any Pro Bowlers? I said not for a 4-win team. I gave 3 options of maybes though, Gregory. Sam Howell as a maybe, as he's got the bulk stats. I don't think he has the name recognition. You have Brian Robinson, who has been, at least top 10 running back this season. So if things kind of work out, he might be able to sneak in as an alternate as well. And then Tress Way, who is actually top 5 in a lot of punting categories. And he was a Pro Bowler last year. He does have name recognition. But outside of that, this team's not good enough to have a lot of Pro Bowlers. So Mike with the under a third. Well, I do think there'll be, I wanted to go with half, but I think that's too risky. So that's why I said 65%. Locked on Law, fire everybody. We'll get all excited. I don't disagree with that. I do appreciate the patience though. If anything out of Carolina should show you is that we should be thankful for some patience. I get that we are reactionary, we're fans, and we want things to change and happen now. But what happened in Carolina? 11 games in, and you also pulled the Bruce Allen missaying the name. You guys remember that? Kirk and Kurt. All right. Well, David Tepper called Frank Reich during the press conference. He literally said, "I really truly respect Frank Reich." You mispronounce the dude's name when you're telling us that you respect him. We don't have to deal with that. And so please be appreciative that we're at least waiting for the end of the season. I get it's not exciting right now, and it's going to make for some rough games ahead, but it is going to be better for us in the long run. Clifton, $1 on a touchdown in the first quarter. Washington's going to need to score in the first quarter if they're going to keep up in this game. I'll take this one. I'll say that I agree with you, Clifton. I agree with you that they'll get their a touchdown in the first quarter. So no, No, Dominique, for our audio listeners, Dominique, think Ron slithers his way into being the new defensive coordinator. One, he's not going to take a drop in position. If he stays with this franchise, it's at a higher level. It's not going to happen. I think he's respected enough that it's going to be a Washington and Ron Rivera, decided to part ways type deal. But it's not like he's not going to take a defensive coordinator position. Not here, probably not anywhere. I think he's probably done. This is a fun one. Gus Bus. Dollar Harris makes the dreaded sideline appearance at the end of the game, a la Jerry Jones and Arthur Blank, or the guy who all loved to hate. No, I think that I will say this: the broadcast will have at least one shot of Harris. We'll see at least one shot of Harris over there. Hawk TV, number of 2-point conversions being converted by Miami. Are they a 2-point conversion team? Do they do that a lot? I haven't watched Miami's games close enough to see it. I've looked into a few and watched some, but I mean, I knew we were only playing them once. I don't have to watch them deep diving into them, and especially as this season went out ahead. But I'm going to go with 0. I don't think they need a 2-point conversion. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this up so that way you guys don't have to see me coughing anymore over here. We do appreciate everybody jumping in. We will have your game preview with the Dolphins team, so that way you can hear from their side of things how confident they are. We'll have the poll up here tonight probably on the game, so you can chat in the community section for that as well. I will be live on Sunday, hopefully cough free by that point, to give you your play-by-play and commentary. Make sure you join me for that, as we at least need to have some fun together. And of course, I will be here for a Daily Commanders update on Thursday and Friday. Be sure to tune into those. My last two, I felt unloved, as not too many people came out for the Sean Taylor appreciation and the London Fletcher appreciation, but I understand. It is kind of a long time between games, so hopefully we get some real game time stuff happening here in the next couple of days. But until next time, I'm Nathan Perry. We're presented by Bet Online, and be a fan.